All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to another exciting day of masterclasses hosted by the IAPC&M. I'm your host, Elena Nedeva, APC, and I'm delighted to be here with you. In recognition of National Stress Awareness Day, we are hosting a special members-only masterclass series designed to help coaches strengthen their own self-care and resilience. This is a masterclass series packed with practical, supportive, and nourishing sessions that put your well-being first. This is your space to pause, reset, and replenish. And what a day it has been. Our first guest today was Dr. Rodney King, who shared with us simple, evidence-informed framework for breathwork and microsomatic practices. The second speaker was Caroline Carroll. She explored the language of the nervous system and how tools like emotional freedom techniques and somatic practices can help regulate, release, and restore balance from inside out. Next was John Rice, who showed us stress-free tips about LinkedIn, anything from creating your coaching profile to generating hustle-free leads. And previously to this, Leah Fitzgerald focused on how to help our clients de-stress. Up next speaking is Ashely Gordon, who has prepared for us a stress awareness and resilience workshop. A little bit about Ashely. Since 2011, he has been working in coaching, mentoring, and training people from a wide range of different backgrounds. Ashely specializes in personal professional development, communications in the workplace, and neuro-linguistic programming coaching trainings. Ash has a strong commitment to personal development for himself and others, using extensive life experiences, specialist training and qualifications to guide and support people in addressing a wide range of life challenges. He's able to engage and work well with a wide range of people from diverse backgrounds with extensive experience of working with vulnerable adults, people with mental or physical health conditions, corporate management, and young people. Ashly is now discovering, training, and supporting coaches, therapists, and trainers across the UK as the master distributor and owner of Noble Manhattan Coaching UK and LLP, timeline therapy, and hypnotherapy trainer. So without further ado, over to you, Ashly.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for having me this evening, early evening. I was asked today to create a presentation around stress and resilience. So Eleanor's quite kindly doing the slides for me. So first off, hi guys, where are you from? Where are you zooming in from this evening? I know we've got lots of people on live stream. Just nice to know where you guys are coming from. Ella, if you can go to the first slide for me.
I will.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Apologies, I'm having trouble with my laptop today. I don't know how I managed to move this slide here, but I'll try to put it back.
It's fine. You can do that. The first part, anyway, is just my introduction. So I've had a lovely introduction from Eleanor. I really appreciate that. So just a little bit of a backstory about myself. I usually start when it got a little bit interesting for me. I was 17 years of age. I joined the army, joined the British infantry. I done my training, and 5 days after my 18th, I was deployed to Iraq, and I found myself, 18 years of age, faced with in a war zone, faced with everything you can imagine that goes on in the war zone. I don't need to go into that. On return from the tours, I ended up doing 2 tours. Came back, and I was just turning 19, and something had changed. The way I carried myself, the way I thought about myself, the way I reacted, the way I acted, everything really just seemed to go downhill from there. This went on. I ended up getting out of the army. So by the age of 20, I was out the army. I was unemployed. I was probably unemployable, and I was just lost, and my life just seemed to spiral completely out of control until one day. I was going through lots of counselling and support, and I went away and spent 6 weeks in a combat stress facility, and what we call nowadays post-traumatic stress disorder. And one day I found myself. I've been referred to a seminar, a meeting just like this, but obviously in person. And I went away. I went over to it, and it was sort of. I live in Dorset. It was down in Devon, and I got there, and they were talking about your unconscious mind, and they were talking about post-traumatic stress. And they were talking about how your body can, hold on to these things, and your nervous system can react to your environment. And it was all just above my head, and I thought it was a bit of mumbo jumbo, to be honest. But I thought, you know what, the food's nice, the people are good, so I'll stay and I'll humour them. And they started to talk about things like neurolinguistic programming. They talked about things called timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, coaching. Again, I didn't really understand it, but I just went along, and I thought, I'll just humour you. I'll just pretend to do the work inside my head when you guide me. Anyway, got to the end of the weekend. It was great, but I didn't, think I was, anything massive had changed within inside me. I didn't have that eureka moment. But anyway, I went off about my normal life, and it was a few days later, I found myself in a situation where I would have reacted like that soldier. I would have, I would have got angry. I would have, really, attacked a position. I would have, I'd have felt that real urge and rush of adrenaline because somebody had said something, probably quite innocuous. And I would have really overreacted. And I had the same thought process of like, well, maybe I should act like that, but I didn't have the charge, didn't have the adrenaline rush. So for me, I thought, right, I found something that can really help me and shift the emotion. Because for me, carrying the stress came from all the negative emotions: anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt. So I made it a mission then, and this is a very, very short story. I made that mission to go and get qualified and to learn more about these tools, which are NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, timeline therapy for releasing negative emotions, hypnotherapy, and coaching. And a long story short, 15 years later, I'm now a trainer of all those things. I'm actually just finished a live training today. The next 2 days, this is how the full circle works. That very seminar that I walked into all those years ago, I am now delivering. So for me, it's a massive testament to me that it worked for me, and I had a massive change. But the most beautiful thing about this is that it helps other people, and that's the most beautiful story along the way is the stories that I pick up from the people by sharing this, what they get from it. So without no further ado, I think that's good enough introduction. I will go into there. I have shared some links for people to keep in touch. But maybe they'll be in the recording, and we can send that out. Yeah, if you want to have a coffee, if you want to check the website, we have monthly meetings, and also a nice little discount for the next, for anyone through the IAPC&M for the next weekend training. Anyway, so let's move on. So I'd just like to, you guys, not expecting you to tell me, but just have a little think about why you're here. I'll tell you why I'm here. So I'm going to share with you what resilience is. From my perspective, why it's important to have it, and obviously how to build it in oneself. So psychological resilience, what is it essentially? Quite a long paragraph there. Psychological resilience is the ability to mentally or emotionally cope with crisis or to return to pre-crisis status quickly. Resilience exists when the person uses mental processes and behavior in promoting personal assets and protecting self from the potential negative effects of stressors. Nice little word. In simple terms, psychological resilience exists in people who develop psychological and behavioral capabilities that allow them to remain calm during crisis, chaos, and to move on from the incident without long-term negative consequences. Now, that is a really, really complicated way of explaining psychological resilience. So, in summary, on the next slide, please. Psychological resilience is the ability to stay calm and recover quickly from challenges or crisis by using positive mental and behavioral strategies to protect oneself from stress and long-term negative effects. Now, I don't know about you, but wouldn't that be nice when the kids are off school and you're up to your eyeballs with all stuff to do with work and you're trying to look after kids, you have problems in your life. I just think it's a very, very good state of mind, and it's a good skill to build. This is a skill. Like all skills, we have to understand what they are, how to do it, why we do it. So this is what I'm going to go through today. So next slide, please. Thank you. So I just want you to think, why is it important to have for you? And this is a self-reflective exercise. What could happen if you don't have it? So if you don't have resilience, psychological resilience, what's going to happen if you don't have it? And in which situations do you need it? Okay, great. So stress, what is stress? We mentioned stressors. Now, the reason why we need the psychological resilience is due to stress. Now, I'm sure I don't need to really go into what stress is, but we will. We'll touch on it. Stress, is we have an amygdala in our minds, in our brains, and this is a primeval part of the mind, which actually is there for danger. It's there to look for threats, danger. Now, many years ago, the sort of early human race, that amygdala there was just there for, maybe there's a saber-toothed tiger that's lurking behind the rock. So, are we going to fight it? Are we going to run away from it? The stress can trigger the fight or flight response. What happens now? Do you think we have good stress? That there's good stresses. So paying your bills is probably a good stress. A little bit of stress that, okay, well, I need to make some money to pay my bills. To maybe get out of bed in the morning and go to work might cause a tiny little bit of stress. Okay, there's all these usual stresses. Now that's why the cup there, as you can see, is probably a quarter full. Imagine this is your nervous system. Your nervous system's there. The liquid in it is, which I'm not sure what liquid it is. The next one is getting fuller. It's building up. Now this is when your little stresses become bigger. Maybe you lose your job, so paying your bills isn't as easy. Maybe you have a health issue and you can't get out of bed, can't get to work. So that little good stress that used to motivate you now becomes a problem. And what stressors could you have? Have a little think in your life. What stressors? What things that cause stress? Relationships sometimes, negative relationships, troubles at home, at work, financial problems. Now, all of a sudden, that little bit of sort of good stress is now doubled or even more, and because of the stressors. Now, what are stressors? Something that can cause a state of strain or tension. Stressors have physical, chemical, and mental responses inside of the body. Can trigger the fight, flight, or freeze response. Now, again, this is meant to be for when danger happens. Yeah. something happens, it's a threat to life, or it's a threat to someone else's life. So am I going to fight the threat? Am I going to flee from it? Am I going to run away and live another day, fight another day? Or, there's another one, which is freeze. And we quite often see this on a smaller scale due to stress, either in the workplace or at home. People are very reactive. They're so full of stress that one little bit comes in and they get overwhelmed and they react, or they run away. They just stick their head in the sand. They won't communicate. They won't talk to you. They won't do their work. They're just kind of just avoiding everything. And again, we see that with the freeze, it's quite similar. Stressors can place tremendous burden on relationships. Now, if you have a personal relationship or a spouse or a partner, what about a work relationship? There's all these factors that come in. Could be the kids, could be money, could be other people around you due to personal boundaries, and people that are maybe taking liberties or whatever that cause stress. So I probably don't need to labour the point of what causes stress, what gets you. But the problem is it goes up and up and up and up until the next slide, bang, overwhelmed. And this is beer, so I didn't know what liquid it was until it got to the end, right? But anyway, this is just to symbolise, your central nervous system absolutely hates stress. Yeah, it's there for the fight and flight response. The stress response is there for danger, for threat to life, not for losing your mobile phone, not for deleting all your data, not for maybe a relationship. It's not designed for those purposes. That's why in general life, when the natural process works, and you've had this, you've had times in your life where you're just plain sailing. Maybe things are going wrong, but you've got enough time and enough headspace to deal with it, to relax, to rest, recharge, reset. And basically, that little bit of liquid at the start, when that fills up, you can chuck it out. Let it fill up again, then chuck it out. Let it fill up again, chuck it out. But then when that stops, it becomes overwhelmed. And I know I don't need to, pretty much everyone in life is going to experience this. So how do we start looking at things differently? So if I said to you, your protection is the fight response. So the fight or the flight response, that is your primary response. So though it gets results, being overwhelmed, overreactive, stressed, angry, sad, hurt, guilty, all these things, by being that, it does get results. One way or the other, probably negative results, but it's something, okay? And it might make you feel better for a short period of time, just to have a blowout and a scream and a shout or whatever, and a cry. But over time, it's not very good. Now, your actual secondary response is anger, fear, hurt, guilt. Now, to protect you, anger does not protect you. Right? If you speak to any in the military, it's not about getting angry when you're fighting for your life. If you got angry, you're not going to be on the ball. You're not going to be able to think straight. You actually shut down when you're angry. Fear doesn't actually preserve life; it prevents it. Now, in the military, they train you to get rid of the flight, so that you are very, very close to fight, so that when you need to, you can, in almost a drop of a hat, you can react. Now, I would say that probably the military is probably the only job in the world that trains you to have post-traumatic stress disorder. It actually builds your thinking around that fight response. So what happens is, if you've ever been in a life or death situation, if you've ever had a highly stressful situation where you felt threatened, or the other person felt threatened, most people feed back. Well, everybody feeds back that at the moment it happened. We've just had a terrible incident in London on the trains. Not near London. Not going to go into it, but the survivors are saying, actually, I didn't have time to be scared. I didn't have time to be angry. I just reacted. I just went in, and it was all about survival. I either ran to the back of the train or I fought, and that was it. Or maybe froze. And afterwards, quite naturally, after the situation, after the threat, once you feel a bit, you get to safety, then you might start having those secondary response of, wow, that was close. I could have died. I could have got really hurt. Someone else could have got hurt. And then the anger, the fear, the secondary responses. So this is the reason why I share this, is because some people think that's going to protect them. Anger is going to protect them. Fear is going to protect them. It's not, if you've ever been to downtown LA, everybody knows that's not a place to walk at night. But I don't lay up at night thinking about, downtown LA. But that's intelligence, that's intelligence to know not where to go, what to do, how to do it, when it's safe, a safer time. Now that's just intelligence. That's not protecting you. If you were to go down LA, at night, it wouldn't be fear and anger that protect you. It would be your instinctive fight and flight. Okay, brilliant. So just move on. I've mentioned this a few times. Negative emotions such as anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt. These are what we call in NLP and timeline therapy. They are major negative emotions. You have little niggles and smaller emotions, lots of words for different things, but this sums them up, the big five, what we call. Now, negative emotions are just communication. Anger could be communication for protection from sadness, usually, like get away. Usually when people are very, very sad, or very suddenly get sad, they might be quite aggressive. They might sort of push you away. They don't want to, they feel very, very vulnerable. So anger is a natural thing that they throw up, and it's communication to say, look, get away, stay away from me. It could be sadness. So they're protecting themselves from sadness. In timeline therapy, when we release past negative emotions such as anger, we usually know that the anger's been released because the sadness starts to come through. It's like an order of hierarchy. So the sadness, communication, expression of true feelings. It could be help me. Usually when people are sad, you see somebody crying. If you're sort of a half sad, empathetic person, you usually want to help them. You usually want to go over and support them, or you want to stop doing what you're doing. If you were shouting at somebody and they started crying, most people would sort of rein that in and stop, and because they would take that as they've gone too far maybe, and that person's got really upset. Fear, communication, again, focused on the worst. So what if it happens again? So that's where the whole cycle of post-traumatic stress disorder comes from. If we just said post-traumatic stress, that's natural. If you had a life or death experience, if you're not feeling anything after it, then there might be, I would be concerned of why not. Unless you're very, very trained and you're used to it, it's a very, common thing for you. But most people, life or death experience, they'll have after the event, because at the time, they didn't feel angry, they didn't feel sad, they didn't feel hurt, they were just surviving, or they were running or whatever. Now, the fear comes in, and the reason why it becomes a disorder is because the focus goes on it happening again. Well, it's going to happen again, it's going to happen again. And if you go around your whole life focused on all the worst things that are going to happen, you're going to feel really bad, aren't you? Now, hurt again, communication, carrying trauma. This links in. I can't trust people. When you feel this is your internal communication, that hurt can really give you that trust issue. That real. Well, if I've been hurt once, the best thing to me to do is never open myself up, never become vulnerable again. Guilt. Again, communication could be linked to shame. I can't forgive myself. I can't forgive other people. Whatever the sort of situation might be. People, guilt really, unless guilt is the only reason why you're not doing that really horrible negative thing again, there's no real need to carry it for the rest of your life. This is a conversation we have a lot in timeline therapy. Yeah, okay, you might have done some negative things, you might have done some bad stuff. And I'm talking in relative terms, talking people that have, maybe hurt somebody in a relationship, or they've, they've. I even work with people, sometimes when they were children and they're carrying the guilt. Our parenting is guilt-based. And most parenting is guilt-based. Go and sit on the step, you naughty boy, girl. Think about what you've done. Now that's guilt. We're installing guilt. But actually, as long as guilt's not the only thing stopping us from robbing somebody or hurting somebody or lying to somebody, then we don't need to carry it. Okay, brilliant. Thanks. Next one. So, programming environment. So I mentioned neurolinguistic programming. Now, this is what happens when people get too much programming. Too much outside influence, not internal. Not clear dialogue, outside. What can happen, that can cause us to have thoughts, have negative, positive emotion. Before we think, we feel. Yeah, so we have to think and then feel. You can't have a positive feeling with a negative thought. It doesn't work, and vice versa. You can't have a negative feeling with a positive thought. You can go from thought to thought to thought. But if you learn to be able to control that process, get in charge of it, this is how the basis of NLP supports people. So emotions, experiences, biological, the environmental impact, learned behavior. Again, I mentioned guilt as a child. Up to 7 years of age, they believe that you have no filters. Yeah? So whatever happens in that child's life, and I think it's pretty easy to see that in society, up to that certain age, they have no choice. They have no real filters. So if their parents are diehard Coventry supporters, football team, then that child will probably be a supporter of Coventry to at least a certain age. Because they had no choice. They got put in the outfit, they got the football kit for Christmas, they got taken to the games. They didn't really have a choice. Now they might have enjoyed it, but still didn't have a choice. 7 to 14 is the years where they start modeling. So they start looking at other people in their life and go, well, I want to be like that. Maybe I want to be like James Bond. Maybe I want to be like David Bowie, or maybe I want to be whoever. They start looking up to people. It could be just people, friends around them, and that has an influence on how they deal with stress, how their parents, how their parents deal with stress, and then 14 to 21, that's the socialization. They start to go out into the world. So this is where all this time, for many years of our life, early developmental years, we are influenced massively. And then obviously pressure and stress, that's the environment. What environment are they in? Are they, me in the military, very young age, being in a very high pressure, high stakes environment. Some people are like that at home because of their home lives. It could be at work. Their work has that effect, or they live in an area. We talked about LA, downtown LA. If you sort of live around a lot of threat, a lot of danger, and this is not to be negative anyone from there, but we have parts all over the world that have those effects. Brilliant. So next slide, please. So that's why in NLP, neurolinguistic programming, at the practitioner level, this is what we cover, because we find that it helps you to understand for your clients where they've come from, what's got them to this state, how can they think the way they think, how can they act the way they act. So we look at strategies. We have we can actually change internal processes. We have strategies for everything. Strategy for going to bed, strategy for getting up, strategy for eating, strategy for sleeping, strategy for our problems, for our the hobbies, everything we have in life. There's a strategy, which is just step by step by step. Well, I do this, then I do that, then I do the other. Now, we're not consciously aware of this. This is an unconscious process because we don't go around thinking like that. These are things we get in our car and drive. It's an unconscious process now because we've done it for so much. Maybe we tie our shoelaces. We don't think step by step, hoop, loop, and swoop anymore. But at one stage in our life, that's what we did. Okay, sensory acuity. Now, know if you're getting what you want in life. Know if you're not getting it, and actually be more aware of your internal feelings, your thoughts, your process. Language, communicating effectively. Now, that's externally and internally. Communication is a massive part of stress and resilience. In a situation where two people lose communication, or the communication goes very, very negative, I'm sure you've all been there and you've all felt that pressure and all that stress. So this is learning how to have clear internal dialogue, being able to program your own thoughts. They're your thoughts. Trust me, they're your thoughts. Developing and rapport. This leads into rapport, developing reflexibility. Now, a lot of people say, well, I just say it like this, and people take it negatively, and that really stresses me out because I don't mean it that way. Well, if I said to you that the meaning of communication is the response you get. Now, communication should be 100%, each. We both take 100% responsibility for our communication. Then the world would probably be a better place. The relationships will be better. It doesn't always work. Now, in a coaching therapy environment, yeah, of course, the professional is going to take 100% responsibility, and would probably explain away to their client how they can do that as well, and maybe why they should do that. And how to build rapport. If you're not vibing with somebody because you're not on the same level. For NLP, we can actually very, very quickly, by understanding all this, all the programming, all the language, all the communication, all the strategies, we can very, very quickly match what we call match and mirror to just get that level of rapport. And that way, it's an uncritical process. It's like talking to an old friend. Instead of talking to someone that you're kind of sussing out still and wary of. Now, I know all my practitioners that all have the highest positive intention for the people they communicate with. Outcomes, again, know your outcomes, change in internal state. As it says there, Summer Daddy's anchoring might not mean a lot to you, but we're all anchored, and especially in relationships. Negative relationships are due to negative anchors. You walk in the house, your partner says something, maybe it's not very meaningful words, but it's the way they say it that triggers instantly in you, maybe when you was a child and you used to get spoken to like that and you really didn't like it, or maybe in school. Now, that's what we call a negative anchor. The great thing is we can clear those up. We have tools, techniques, we have ways that can empower people to take charge of their lives, and clear out all the old stuff. Stop playing the same record over. Brilliant. So let's look at how. Let's look at how. How do we do this? So how do we build resilience? Principles for success in stressful situations. Now, we all know if how we react to stress. Deep down, we can be honest with ourselves, and we can say, look, I don't deal with stress very well. If that's true for you, if you do, brilliant. You probably don't need to learn this. You probably don't need to change it. But if you don't, have a plan. Know your outcome. A little bit like I did at the start. Why are you here? Think about why you are listening to this, watching this, why you're here. Have a plan. So plans, be a warrior, not a worrier. Warriors sit there and worry about all the bad things that are going to happen. Now, if I sat here all day long thinking about all the bad things that are going to happen, I'm probably going to make it happen, or I'm not going to feel very good, even if it doesn't happen. So plan, make a plan the outcome, focus on, okay, so in a stressful situation, if it pops up, this is what I'm going to do. Then you need to take action. So there's no point in having a plan, sitting down, making a plan. Okay, so maybe my plan is as soon as because when you start to get overwhelmed, when you start to, it's a very, very, very early intervention that's better to go, okay, well, I'm feeling a bit pulsy, I'm feeling a bit stressed, I feel a bit hot, I feel a bit whatever, I feel a bit threatened, I feel a bit insulted, whatever it might be. So what I'm going to do is politely go for a walk, or politely leave the situation, or maybe if it's a work situation, it might be about putting something in place. I work with a lot of children who are in care, in social care. They've had very bad experiences. They've missed massive parts of school, and I work with them I coach them to have a plan for when they leave school, and getting into college or whatever, getting a job. And then the way I re-engage them back into class is they go, well, the teacher says something to me in a certain way and I storm out. So I go, okay, well, let's break that down. Let's find out exactly how and what and why the teacher's saying it, so that you can be really aware of it, so that when you hear the first red flag, let's say, you can then go with the plan. And the plan is that you've spoken to the teacher, you've spoken to the student support, you're allowed to leave the class, it doesn't cause any trouble, you don't kick off and slam the door and shout because you've been told to stay in there. This is just, and then, this is just an idea. And then we take action. So we've got to do something, early intervention. If you don't do anything, you'll always get the same result, if you don't change it. Third is have sensory acuity. We mentioned that. Now that's either being able to look across at other people. In NLP, it's looking across at other people and see if our communication has been accepted the way we want it. Internally, this is being very, very self-aware of your strategy for reacting negatively to stress. Let's say, to becoming angry, or to becoming sad, or to becoming hurt, guilty, whatever it might be. Have behavioural flexibility. Now, what's more flexible? A plastic ruler, I don't know if when using school, you might have had those shatterproof plastic rulers, and they're not shatterproof because you whack them on the table and they just shatter, yeah? Okay, or you could they bend to a certain bit and then they break. Now that, or I don't know if you know windscreen rubber, the blade off a windscreen. Now if you take that off, windscreen wiper, or a big long bit of rubber, you can bend it, stretch it, tie it, knot it, do whatever, pretty much, and then it will always go back to how it was. If you can develop behavioral flexibility where, you don't get so offended over, the way somebody spelt something wrong, or, maybe somebody says something in a slightly abrupt tone, and you get very, again, this is the anchoring, but you get very upset by it. If you can find a way through having a plan, taking action, having that sensory acuity, and then becoming very, very flexible, you'll be able to roll with the punches. Life is very much up and down. I don't need to tell anyone that. And it is about really, really enjoying the highs and being grateful for that. And then when it gets very low and dark, it's about learning how to buckle down and ride it. Until the cycle happens again. You're gonna escalate. You're gonna get back up there. Then say it the way you want it. Clear communication. If I said to you now, don't think of a blue tree. Don't think of a blue tree with its blue leaves and its blue branches and its blue bark. You thought of a blue tree, right? Okay. In order to not think about a blue tree, you have to think about it first. Now think about that. So it doesn't make any sense to tell yourself, well, just don't be stressed, don't be angry, don't be guilty. You're basically focusing on the thing you don't want. Now, our unconscious minds, we don't process the negatives, and conscious minds. Sorry, we don't process negatives. That's why if you see a sign that says wet paint, sometimes people touch it. Wet paint, don't touch. They touch it to see if it's still wet or tacky. You've all done it. Hot plate, the waiter comes over, or waitress comes over, hot plate, don't touch it. And straight away you test it, right? So it doesn't make sense to tell yourself or other people what not to do. It's confusing. So become very, very clear. If you want to be treated a certain way, tell them to treat you a certain way. It's usually the opposite. If you don't want to be treated disrespectfully, please treat me with some respect. Yourself, if you don't want to focus on the stress, the worry, that how you used to act, tell yourself exactly, okay, instead of saying, I want to be stressless, or I don't want to feel stress anymore. What about, I want to become calmer? Yeah. I'm good. I'm feeling good. I'm getting there. Keep it positive. Keep it moving forward. Also, as well, a really good way of jamming the internal dialogue. Now, I know this is a very, very short training. My NLP training start from 7 days, so this is just a very, very short introduction, and just to use for this resilience, to jam the internal dialogue. That part of you, that little voice that describes your external or describes your experiences, you can jam it by something like "There's only now, there's only now, there's only now." If you ever get overwhelmed and you get in that, you get anxious about the future, there's only now, there's only now, there's only now. As long as it's positive in nature, whatever you say over and over and over again, we'll jam that, or stop. Everybody just stop. Now, what did you think about when I said stop? Stopping, yeah, or a stop sign, or so you can say that to yourself, out loud, preferably. But if you're in public, you might just want to say it in your head. But say stop, 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 stop. Yeah? Break that negative thought. Like thought attracts like thought. Just break that negative cycle. But then you need to give yourself clear instructions of what to do next. So be calm, get calmer, focus on what you want. Awesome. Okay. So just I'll be happy if you share the best exercise that will help us to heal from any kind of crisis in our life. In our life. Your favorite one. My favorite one. Okay. That's a very, very broad, very, very broad question, but I'll give it a go. I like it. I like this smile as well. That's great. Thanks for that. So I would first, again, follow that plan. Have a plan. But crisis is going to happen. Yeah. We have a saying that the proverbial happens. Stuff happens, right? And it's going to happen. There's only things that you can. There's only certain things you can prevent in life. Yeah. So I would sit down and create a box of 4, and I would go, right, what could happen? Yeah. What could happen? Yeah. What will happen? What could I do if it does happen? And what don't I want to do if it happens? Yeah. Now, if you do this, you would literally be able to see very clearly, what your next step is. Yeah. Take away, obviously, what do I want to do? What do I want to happen? And then run it through that 5 steps. So I want to build a mindset of resilience, so that I am calm, I am confident, and I'm in control. So that's my plan. Sorry, can we just go back one slide? That's my plan. Thank you. Then I'm going to take action. So if whatever happens, the crisis pops up, straight away, I know, right, this is it. This is happening. The plan needs to activate. I'm going to take action. So my next step is tell myself to stop, tell myself to focus on only what I want. If you don't focus on only what you want, the suggestions become, your evaluations become suggestions to your unconscious. You actually tell yourself to feel a certain way. So make sure you're being very self-aware. Then the behavioral flexibility, you're already doing this now because you've planned, you've taken action, you have sensory acuity, you're becoming very, very flexible, you're rolling with the punches. And then 5 is say it the way you want it. Tell yourself exactly how you want to feel, how you want to think, and then how you want to act. I hope that helps. It's a very, very broad question, but I thought I'd give it a go. But thank you very much for the question. Is there any more questions? Pop to the next slide, please, Aline. No, we're good? Okay. Okay. Make it an easy one. Okay, how can we measure or know that we are healing properly? To be honest, it's probably beyond the realms of this workshop. Healing, I would just say, healing isn't a destination. Healing isn't me flying to another country and getting there. Healing is a journey. Yeah, and some parts of that journey are going to be good, and some parts are going to be tough, going to be bad. If you've ever done a long haul flight, you've travelled for many many hours. There'll be parts of that that are good, bad, and indifferent. So for you personally. So I would say it's probably about outside of what, because I would need to know what you're healing from, how you're healing, and then it goes into the realms of therapy. But it's a really good question, and I think for me personally, post-traumatic stress disorder, I don't have it now. Yeah, I'm different now, but it means that the symptoms are gone. That's how you have to look at it. The symptoms are gone. I act differently now. I feel differently. I think differently. But I've not tried it. I've not gone, right, I'm never going to do any NLP again. I'm never going to do any time of therapy again. I'm never going to do any coaching again. I'm going to stop going and like a diet. I'm not going to get a diet, find a diet that really works. I lose lots of weight. I feel really great. I feel healthy. And then I go, do you know what? Well, that's great. I'm going to start eating McDonald's. I'm going to start eating Burger King. I'm going to eat, loads of rubbish. I'm going to drink loads of beer. And then I'm never going to exercise, just to test to see if I'm never going to put weight back on. Does that make sense? Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Cool. So yeah, hopefully this was very useful for you. Feel free to get in touch with the contact deals. Let me know how it went. How did it go? Brilliant. Thank you very much. I love that. Nice love heart. What did you learn? Tell me what you learned. Ask me questions. Keep communicating. This is just a very, very small tip of the iceberg. But I've really enjoyed talking for the last sort of 40, 50 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me. Is there any more questions? Can I help in any way? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashely, for being here with us today. Tremendously enjoyed your presentation as always. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, well, I'm always welcome. Sorry, you're welcome to ask me back. I'd love to come back. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, mate.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.